The recently announced budget has catered to a lot of section in India. We have Narsi Monje Institute of Management Studies and the students and the faculty with us to speak more on how they find the budget of this year. What would you say was the part where you said that okay, this is from my point of view, this budget has been good.
So the government has tried to consolidate the fiscal policy, and the estimates were 4.8%. So that was really good. Apart from that, there have been various incentives for agriculture and textiles, nuclear energy. So the big highlight was the taxation, where the middle class got a lot of relief. So that was one point where we all felt very good.
Okay. We have a woman with us from a point of view of a woman and also a student. How did you find the budget and the USP of it? What would you say?
So the USP would be there was a fine balance between fiscal prudence and at the same time boost to the consumption, disposable in boost to the middle class disposable income. Also, coming from a technology background, it was nice to see government's push for India's AI mission with an outlay of 2,000 crore, and this will help rapid expansion of AI across the economy, which will in turn have a multiplier effect with help of productivity-led growth. And skill development would be a core for this transition, and establishment of GCCs, COEs, and adult tinkering labs would help in skill development and this overall transition.
Okay. So overall transition and R&D is the focus of the government. We also have Professor Mayank Joshipura with us. Sir, you are the faculty over here and you have seen the industry. How did you find this year's budget?
Of course, this government has maintained a lot of balance between fiscal prudence and growth. A clear shift towards consumption from capex is visible, and of course, a little disappointment in terms of what was planned about the capex last year, which we could not meet, and we have slowed down. Of course, any government has to be dynamic and responsive towards the change in ground reality. So we saw there were a lot of pain in rural as well as urban consumption, and the best way to deal with it is by providing this 100,000 crores of tax soaps. And as we know, there is a multiplier effect to that. So eventually, we hope that the consumption will go up by about 500,000 crores. If everything goes as per plan, it will eventually kickstart private investments and things should settle down. The great thing is that while, of course, there is some tapering of capex, but we have not moved away from fiscal discipline. It's even the targeted fiscal deficit is 4.4% of the GDP. And the debt to GDP ratio, we have pegged the target by 2031 as 50% from current 55%. So it shows that despite a lot of welfare schemes and focus toward employment generation, youth, government is not sort of moving away from the path of fiscal prudence. It's very important the way things are panning out globally. The geopolitical tension, trade wars are going on, rupee is sliding and may slide even further. So if we leave this path of fiscal prudence, we may have a significant inflation and sliding rupee, which could sort of mount a lot of trouble for us. So in a way, it's a great balanced budget. Thank you.
So you mentioned about SOPs and the various schemes that the government is giving. Now, the tax exemption to the 12 lakh limit. How do you say where the money would be coming from for the government to have their expenditure?
So it's not money coming from. As you can see, the capex has been cut down. So last year itself is what 11.11 lakh crores. We could spend probably about 10.2 only, and the next year target again is the same. So practically from last year there is no growth. So that 100,000 crore which we are sort of going to give away in form of taxes, to that extent we have tapered down on capex. And it's reasonable because, if you see the way capex has grown, it's now almost like 3.5% of GDP and 22% of total expenditure. Beyond a point, it's very difficult to deploy and absorb such, capex in the economy. So in a way, it's a trade-off that has been achieved, and government is wishing that people would spend as well as save. Given our 20% odd savings rate, if 80% will move into the consumption, we'll see a lot of pickup in consumption and then growth. 60% of our aggregate demand is coming from consumption. So if that works, it will contribute significantly to the GDP growth.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to the students. What works for you?
Actually, I like to highlight the energy and environment part of the budget. So I believe that budget this year has colored the country green, be it starting from the green energy initiatives like 1000 gigawatt of nuclear energy that will be provided by 2047, or the sustainable shipbuilding process in the maritime industry if we see. Also, for also after this, there has been a lot of focus on EV, that 48 capital goods exemption and reducing of custom duties on it. That will create more jobs in the green sector, lead to more innovations. And also there is a sustainable sourcing of lithium and other rare materials. So that will also be a good step for India.
What has been the good step, as he has mentioned, what has been a good step for you from the budget?
So one of the primary area that the finance minister highlighted was agriculture. So in agriculture, the focus was on two fronts. First is productivity, and the second is self-reliance. On the self-reliance front, if we see the import of pulses in calendar year 24 was 2x of what it was in 2023. So there is a dedicated 6-year mission that the government has launched for Atmanirbharta in pulses. So wherein the government agencies like NCCF will procure the pulses, primarily the tur dal, masoor dal and urad dal from farmers for 4 years. Similarly, there is a Atmanirbharta mission for edible oils, and there is a Makhana board that has been set up in Bihar. So this was for the self-reliance front. On the productivity front, the government has launched a PM Dhananya Krishi Yojana, wherein the government will identify 100 districts wherein the crop productivity is low and there is a moderate crop intensity. So the major focus on those districts will be on providing irrigation facilities, providing the crop diversification, and most importantly, providing long-term and short-term credit facilities to farmers. So it is expected that these measures will help 1.7 crore farmers and improve the productivity in agriculture sector.
Okay, so he explained the agriculture part very well. If you had to speak about the nuclear part, where India is going to become a hub of it and also a leader of it, how do you see that those announcements?
So if you see the nuclear power in a nuclear power sector, so I think India is moving towards if we see the Indian car, like it is going to net zero by 2070. So it's moving a great step, and many allocations have been done in the budget for that also. And apart from that, if you see the income taxes, like the income taxes, like if you see the highest slab 30%, that is above 24 lakh currently. And if we see the financial year 2010-11, so there was 30% slab above 8 lakhs. So if we see and adjust the inflation over across the 15 years, the inflation adjusted tax slab comes to 24 lakhs. So first time it has happened in the Indian budget that an inflation tax adjusted tax slabs have come in effect, and that's a big boost. Though government has foregone 1 lakh crore taxes, income taxes in it, but it will boost the consumption and the savings in the private sector, and it will lead to the economic growth of the country because the government is not doing much of capex as others have mentioned. So this will be a big boost to the consumption sector in the private sector.
From the budget, how do you see we are moving towards the self-reliance?
So as far as the budget 2025 is concerned, we can see that India has currently committed a lot to green technology. So I like that they are now focusing on self-reliance in creating an ecosystem of solar panels as well as EV batteries. So what we want to do is we want to reduce import dependency, and we want to boost manufacturing. And for that, we actually have to do a lot of ground action in terms of land reforms as well as grid security. So as far as self-reliance is concerned, we need to boost manufacturing by infusing a lot of capital, and I guess the tax reform this time has not only boosted consumption, it will also give us a time to innovate.
What would you say the highlights?
I would say that there are many key initiatives that the budget of 2025 has taken, especially if we look at it has a lot of focus on the state of Bihar, which has been like one of the first times. Moreover, there has been like a 1 lakh crore urban challenge fund that is there, and several initiatives in the manufacturing space to make India a manufacturing powerhouse. However, if we look at the economic survey of 24-25, we see that the corporate profits have risen to about 22% over 24. However, the employment rate has just increased by 1.5%. So the income disparity or the economic disparity is increasing over the years, and it is even worse than it was in 1950. So I believe that the government should also focus on this area through budgeting.
What would you say the focus of the government should be?
So this year budget, so the focus, one of the key focus was also towards the exports, as we have seen that this year we have reached about 800 billion of exports. So with one of the key reforms was being in export promotion mission. So this was a direct coordinated effort between Ministry of Commerce and Finance Ministry to set sector specific targets and to enhance credit access. While there was also unveiling of Bharat TradeNet, which is a digital public infrastructure that will facilitate trade documentation and financing. And there is also a national framework for global capability centers that are to be expanded to tier town cities, and additionally 20,000 crore rupees budget has been set up for R&D and innovation to enhance trade competitiveness. So from the point of boosting the Indian exports, the budget has been a very substantive trademark in the way of going towards self-reliance.
We also have Professor Bakshi with us, sir. We usually, term budget as one of the marks where, in India can give a report card. How would you see this particular report card? And in these report cards, which other marks would you say will take India towards Atmanirbharta?
So I don't want to give any point, say 10 out of 7 or something like that. But what I really liked about this budget is that India's fiscal deficit, which was 9.2% during the COVID time, has gone below 5%. First thing. Primary deficit was less than now 1% as per the budget reports. Now this figure has a very important thing in the world. Why? Because the World Bank has said something that currently we are experiencing fourth wave of debt. So all the emerging and developing economies, they are accumulating a lot of public and private debt as well. Now in these times when we see our country reducing their debt, so it has it is something which is very remarkable. That's number one. Number two is that I work in the area of international trade, and in my research up till now, what I have found out that India's exports has been mostly low quality exports, right? And what I observe is that in this time, around